Manchester United 2, FCSB 0, and actually a really good night for Manchester United. We dominated possession, we had control, we dominated the big chances created, the expected goals, and also the actual goals as well, which is always pretty useful in a football match. This was a really good game for Manchester United, and today we are going to be breaking down exactly what was so good about it all. But before we do that, if you guys could quickly subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing. So please just press subscribe, and then we'll get into the video. So for today's video, we are purely going to be focusing on Manchester United on the ball, because from back to front, United looked really good structurally, and I also thought a lot of the technical quality on display was quite good as well. The first thing we should point out before we get into anything else though is the team news, the starting 11. A different back three with Mazraoui coming back into a deeper position, but in particular in the middle here, this box of four. This is four central midfielders playing at the heart of the pitch, which is different from Manchester United. Not a single winger on the pitch in the first half of the match. But anyway, we'll get onto that a little bit later on. Starting off for now, in the deeper position, the goal kicks. Manchester United straight away from the start use a slightly different structure to what we are used to. We are used to seeing the middle centre-back moving himself into midfield and becoming an extra player in this position, and almost at times actually clogging up the middle of the pitch. What we saw in this game though was De Ligt splitting more to the right hand side. Mazraoui would of course do the same as well, because naturally he is a right back, and then Mainoo would sort of play this position where in moments he's playing just between the two centre backs, but there were also moments as well where it actually became sort of a new back four, and what this did was it gave United too many players basically for the opposition, because we were using the goalkeeper as the extra outfielder. So for example, when the ball was over here with Mazraoui and the opposition in moments were trying to be a bit more aggressive with their press, we were really effectively able to use the goalkeeper to go backwards to find a spare man on the far side and then progress the ball quite easily. Now, having progressed the ball through the first phase, United quickly then settled back into their back three shape as Mazraoui moved into a more central position. Normally what we expect from here is the 3-2 formation, and you can see it briefly here, but this is actually one of the only times during the game that we actually saw this shape, because what United did very quickly was change to a slightly different formation. Toby Collier, playing in the double pivot initially, actually became much more of a solo pivot. He was essentially the solo holding midfielder, and I would assume that Ruben Amorim done this because he felt that United had too much quality for the opposition, so you can take more risks in possession and push players further forward. One of those players that was pushed further forward was Bruno Fernandes, and what we actually often saw from United was a sort of 3-1-3 shape in the middle of the park, or you could actually call it a diamond. And what it's allowed United to do was still have four players in the heart of the pitch, which is what we're used to seeing, but because of the rotation of the players, it actually made ball progression a little bit easier. So like I've said, straight away we've got a player higher, which gives us more access to move the ball forward. What we also get in this shape though is the ability for the two inside forwards, Eriksen and Mainoo, to actually move outside of the opposition structure a little bit more. So you see, because Bruno Fernandes has gone in the middle of them, it means that these two, rather than being narrow and quite close to each other, can actually just separate just a little bit wider. And this gives us further ball progression methods, because we can move the ball through the lines a little bit easier, because they're more accessible, if you like. The opposition are almost comfortable with them outside of our shape, but that meant that they were an option on the ball. So Mazraoui could play into Eriksen and Lisandro Martinez into Mainoo, and we could access these spaces outside of the opposition structure. So this was good for Manchester United. This was us taking more risks, pushing more players further forward, but actually had a really good effect. The other thing that this shape allowed as well, though, was greater attacking license for our two centre-backs as well, the outside centre-backs. Now, this was something that I was talking about yesterday in my video breaking down Lisandro Martinez and his recent performances. And I was talking in that video about how he's been getting forward more recently, how he's been an attacking threat. We saw that taken to a new level in this game because of the shape. You see, when United are normally in the 3-2 shape like this, because there's two midfielders, they split a little bit wider and take up a bit more room, like this. This gives the centre-back slightly less room to move into. When we now move this to a solo pivot instead though, like this, you can see that a lot of space opens up. And Lisandro Martinez, in the first half in particular, spent pretty much the whole time playing as almost an extra midfielder. He was given so much room to move forward. Mainoo would push a little bit higher up the pitch. Lisandro Martinez is now given this license to step and dominate. And like I said, he actually almost became an extra midfielder. And in the first half, where there were moments where the tempo was lacking, to be fair, Lisandro Martinez did offer us something a little bit extra. He was putting crosses into the box, he was trying to fire incisive passes through the lines like he always does, but also he was looking to play in behind as well. Now, the reason he was able to play in behind was because we've got so many players so close to each other in the final third of the pitch. And what this means is that we can try and manipulate the opposition a little bit more. We actually saw it for one of the goals. United still naturally have the 4 players in the middle, like the core of 4. That's too many players for the opposition to deal with. And particularly for the first goal, when you start combining in this 4, it can be quite deadly. Certainly against weaker opposition as well, where, you know, they defend the back post poorly and things like that. It made United really, really dangerous in this area. Having the extra players in there, of course, it was Dalot in that move that arrived at the back post to finish, but it made Manchester United more dynamic going forward. The other thing we did well, though, was actually individually, the movement looked a little bit sharper, particularly with Mainoo playing in a higher position. Now, when you move Kobe from a deeper position to a higher position, you might expect someone who perhaps doesn't move enough and doesn't actually shift the opposition's defence about enough. You know, he's used to playing deep, getting lots of touches of the ball, having things in front of him. When you put him in this position, there's a risk that he's going to be too stationary on the ball. But that wasn't the case at all. In fact, it was the complete opposite. When someone like Lisandro Martinez had the ball in deeper positions, Kobe was doing an excellent job of making a sort of double movement. So he would make the first movement towards the ball to drag the defender with him, and then he's going to spin him behind into the space that he's created for himself. And we know that Lisandro Martinez has the passing range to find Kobe in those positions. So this was a really effective way for United to move the ball forward. We could also see the same down the other side with Christian Eriksen as well. And just a big benefit of this shape was 4 very technical players playing really close to each other, so you see a great combination work. However, despite all those positives so far, there was still one problem in the first half, and that was the lack of wide threat. We may have been combining well centrally, but the opposition are always going to be able to clog up the middle of the pitch with just sheer numbers, to be honest. Lots of players in the middle makes it difficult to play through. What United really needed was a bit of intensity and a bit of pace in wider positions. So pace and intensity is what we needed in wider positions, and pace and intensity is certainly what we got. Amad and Garnacho came onto the pitch at half-time and just added that little bit extra for United. When you get wingers on the football pitch, it changes things because they take players on 1v1. In the first half, United had all of the tactical overloads, particularly in the middle of the pitch. We had the 4 players which were able to overload the opposition. But the problem was, whilst we had tactical overloads, we were still struggling 1v1. We didn't really have a player who could take the ball past someone until Garnacho and Amad came on the pitch, and they offer something completely different. Amad, immediately after coming on, within 2 minutes, has asked a real question of the fullback. He's taken him all the way to the byline and put a ball into the box. So suddenly that's asking more questions. But we also saw a rotation on the left-hand side and actually a brilliant individual performance from Garnacho, in my opinion. So Dalot from left wing-back would rotate inside the pitch into the half space where he got his goal from, and Garnacho would actually drift a little bit wider. And Garnacho in this position was phenomenal at just taking his player on, you know, just attacking the wing-back or the full-back, asking questions, putting doubt in his mind, constantly trying to beat him. And I just loved his cameo. I thought his cameo was so good. It added a pace, it added a directness to the Manchester United performance. His decisions in the final third were good as well. I mean, the pass selection for the goal is absolutely brilliant, picking out Mainoo. That whole goal is actually quite nice, the way that United sort of drifted about, the way that Kobe had this license to drift across the attack despite now being on the right hand side. Bruno Fernandes was given a lot of license to move about the pitch, control, and actually he really dictated this game. This was too easy for Bruno Fernandes. Sorry for my voice going. Realistically, as the second half went on, it was too easy for Bruno. He was a level or 2 or 4 ahead of the opposition that he was against, and it made life quite easy. And of course, the opposition started to open up because they were a goal behind, and then you get room for Garnacho to run into, for Højlund to run into, for Amad to run into, and genuinely it turns into a pretty good free-flowing, attacking Manchester United performance. Now, of course, we have to remember that the opposition, it was weak. We were playing against quite a poor side that you would absolutely expect Manchester United to dominate, but you can still only beat what's in front of you, I believe is how the saying goes. And that's exactly what Manchester United did. In the end, we probably should have scored 3 or 4 goals, and that would have been big for confidence if we could have done that. But regardless, this was a good performance, and there are things here that United need to try and take into future games against more difficult opposition. It's fine to be expressive, to be free-flowing against a poor team, but can you do it in the Premier League against tougher opposition? We'll have to wait and see. The things I want to see continuing moving forward is rotations in the box in midfield. So these 4 given the license to drift and chop and change. You know, in the first half we saw Mainoo dropping actually into a midfield 3 at times. At times we saw the diamond shape, at times we saw the 3-2 shape like we're used to. It was good to see those rotations. Once again, I also enjoyed the rotations on the left-hand side as well, particularly when Garnacho comes onto the pitch. He gives us something a little bit different. You guys know that I'm not fond of a fullback holding the width because I don't believe in their 1 versus 1 ability, and we had that problem in the first half with Malacia. But in the second half, with Dalot going to the left and then moving inside, Garnacho gives us so much more threat. And of course, Ahmad carried a huge threat down the right-hand side as well. United looked more dynamic out wide all of a sudden, and then when you're dynamic out wide, you stretch your position. And when you stretch your position, you then open up the middle of the pitch and combine all of that with an increase in tempo, intensity, technical ability, a sharpness about the way that United were playing, particularly as the confidence come in. You start seeing little flicks and tricks from different players. It's a really good night for United. We got minutes into different players. Certain players got rested or certainly didn't play a full 90. And we got the confidence boost of a good 2-0 win, a good performance where we controlled, dominated the ball, and I would say executed Ruben Amorim's really good game plan. So it's a good night for Manchester United. I personally am happy. Hope you guys are too. If you are, let me know in the comments down below. What did you think of the United performance? Who impressed you? What did you think of Mainoo in this new left 10 and then eventually right 10 position? What did you think of Bruno Fernandes deeper, Garnacho in his cameo? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.